Hey, Heather here. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be coloring this super cute Stampin' Bella image called Belinda and Bernadette, the Bench Buddies. Aren't they cute? I love that. This stamp set comes with the stamp and the sentiment for your card kit, so you'll have both of those to make other cards. I will put a link down in the description box to the card kit and all the supplies I've used. I would love for you to come and shop with me. And remember, there's always other stuff in the store if you're not interested in card kits. And always check out the clearance section because there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. So I've already stamped my image on Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock with Memento Tuxedo black ink. So let's color. So let's start out by outlining our image, and for that I'm going to use B*0. And I'm going to start over here at the edge of my bench, and I'm just going to work my way around my entire girl back to the other side of the bench. And if you do it first, you don't have to worry if you get some color on your girl you didn't want there. You can just use your colorless blender to erase it. So we're just going to go all the way around and back over to the other side here. And she's got a little space here in between her neck and her hair, little ponytail right there that I'm going to fill in. And back around to this side. And then also right here in between the girls, I'm going to fill in with some blue. And then she's got a little dab of background showing right here on the other side of her neck and this girl's hair that I'm going to fill in. And let's go ahead also and do right here between this girl's shirt and her hair. There's a little bit of patch there that I'm going to use as background. Now let's move on to their skin, and for that we're going to use E21, E00, and E11. So I'm going to start with my E21 this time, and I'm going to go down here and we're going to start on her legs. Let's zoom in a little bit. And they're really small. So I'm going to just use the very tip of my pen to make a little bit of a line along next to her skirt and then down the inside of each of the legs. Same for this side. And then I'm going to take E00 to fill that in. And remember, it's really small, so you got to use just the very tip of your pen. Okay, then we're going to go up here, and in between each of the girls' shirts, there's a little bit of their back showing. So I'm going to again take E21. And I'm going to bring that in from each side and go a little bit underneath the waistband of their shirts. And then I'm going to fill it in again with E00. And we're going to move up here to their arms. So I've again grabbed E21. And let's start with this little girl over here. And I'm going to go down just the very tip of my pen, down the inside of her arm. And then she's got right next to her shirt, I'm going to add a little bit of shadow. And then I want to do her shoulder blade. And then I'm going to do right next to her tank top. And then we're going to do her neck. And I'm going to connect it down here where her tank top was. And then for her arm, I'm going to go right next to her tank top strap. And then I'm going to go right next to this girl's blouse and along the bottom of her arm. And remember, I'm just using the tip of my pen because that's a really small area. Okay, and then for this girl, we're going to go ahead and go right along her hand and then down along the bottom of her arm and back up to her sleeve. And I'm going to go underneath of her ruffle on her sleeve. And then over here, I'm going to go underneath this ruffle because she's got just a tiny bit of her arm showing over here. And then I want to add a little bit of shadow underneath this girl's arm on her back, like that. Then I'm going to grab my E00 to fill all that the rest of the area in. Go right down her arm. And finish pulling all this color. And I always touch down my pen on top of the previous color so it'll soften the edges. And I'm going to go back over it a second time because it's looking a little blotchy still. Okay, that looks better. Then, after I got it all finished, I took my E11 because I wanted to add some shadows in a little bit. And I'm going to take my E11 and I'm just going to go along and add where I want to add a little bit of shadows. And again, I'm just barely using the end of my pen. So you could do this part if you wanted or not. I just thought she needed a little bit more darkness there. And I'll go up here and add a little bit underneath my arm here. And maybe underneath this little sleeve. Along her little backbone there. Okay, I'm liking that. And I'm not going to blend it. I'm just going to leave it like that. Next, let's work on the ponytail girl's hair. For that, let's use E35, E33, and E31. And I'm going to start with my E35. And she's got a couple of little flowers in her hair, so if you don't want to color over those, kind of watch where those are. But I'm going to add some of my E35 right around that flower and kind of work around on my ponytail and add some dark streaks. And I keep my streaks going in the direction that her hair is growing. So I wouldn't want to go straight across like this because her hair is obviously not growing that way. And let's add a few down here on the bottom of this little wrapper here. And maybe a little bit down here. Then I'm going to grab E33. And again, do your streaks, adding them onto, touching down on the last color. And then pulling your hair streaks around in the same direction that her hair is wrapped. And some of these little areas are hard, so it could be just the tip of your pen. Then I'm going to grab E31 to fill it in. And I'm going to go from the top down so that I don't go outside into the blue. Being a little bit more careful. And then I like to go back with my darkest color, which was E35, and add some more shadows in after I've already done it. The whole coloring in. And I did color over a little bit of the flowers, but that's okay because we're going to color those red. So if you got some on them, it's not going to matter. We'll color that right up. Next, let's do the curly girl's hair, and for that we're going to use E18, E15, and E13. I'm going to start with my E18, and I'm just going to randomly pick some of these great little swirls that are already drawn. And I'm just going to go right over the top of the lines and kind of swirl and curly cue them around in there. Technical term. I'm not really caring if it doesn't stay exactly on the line. I'm just adding some color in there. Okay, and then I'm going to grab E15, and I want to go over the top of those colors, that color I just laid down, and go into some of the white area. So I'm making my line thicker. But by going over the top of the last color, I'm also softening the edge of the line. And then we're going to grab E13 next, and I want to fill in again some more of this area. So I touch down on top of some of these previous lines, but I also want to fill in here where there's no color. And I'm swirling my brush around in a circular motion, kind of blending all the colors together. And I have a few little white specks in there, and that's okay. I'm going to leave it like that. Now let's work on Tank Top Girl's shirt. For that, we're going to use BG 34, 32, and 11. And I'm going to turn my girl so I can flick with the side of my pen. I'm going to start with BG 34, and I'm going to lay down my color. And I'm holding my pen more on the side, so it's not straight up and down. And I'm going to flick my pen right from the edge and bring it in towards her arm here. And go up here. And then I also want to bring the color up here and around onto this strap. And I'm going to do it twice, so that's okay for my first coat. Next, I'm going to grab BG 32, and I want to lay my pen down on top of the last color and flick out further. And this time I want to go past her elbow. And we're going to fill in this little triangle right here. And then I'm going to take BG 11 to pull out here towards this side. And she has some dots there at the bottom of her shirt. I didn't care about those. I just colored right over the top of them. Okay, and I left a little bit of white there on the edge. Now I'm going to grab BG 34 again. And I'm going to go right over it again. So I'm going to bring this color, and I think I'll bring it out just a little bit further. So I'm going to go to about the end of her elbow. So we'll bring this color out a little bit further. And then I'm going to grab BG 32, and we want to fill in this section right here. And then we want to go over this again. And again, I'm touching down where I left my last color. And then we'll fill that whole area in with our BG 11. So we're going to go right out to the edge of our t-shirt. And with this color, I like to kind of go across the whole area. That will help blend, if there's any lines over on this side, blend those a little bit more. And then since we have these colors out, let's hop over here and do the butterfly too. So again, I'm going to grab BG 34, and I want to add a little bit of color on the inside of his wings. And then BG 32, and I'm going to fill in this center section, and then BG 11 to go out to the edges. Let's work on this girl's shirt next. So for that, we're going to use R08, R05, and R02. I'm going to start with R08, and I'm going to turn her this way because I want it to be darkest here in the center and lighter out here. So I'm going to start with my R08 on this side. And let's go ahead and flick like this off the sleeve. And then we're going to go down this side of her shirt. And I'm going to be careful because I don't want to get outside the lines, hopefully, because this would be a hard color to erase. Okay, that's good for a first coat. Then we'll do R05 next, and this time I'm going to fill in this sleeve over here. And I left this ruffle down here on the bottom for the last color. And then we're going to bring this color over here a little bit more. And I'm not worried about getting color down here on the waistband because I'm going to color that with the RO8 at the end. And then next I'm going to tip to tip. So I'm going to grab my RO5, which is this one, and my RO2, which is this one. And I'm going to rub my RO2 onto my RO5. And then I'm going to lay down on my last color. And I'm going to put some of that on, and I'm running out, so I'm going to grab a little bit more. Just so there's not quite a big of a difference towards the edge here, because RO2 is quite a big leap from RO5. And I'm going to go up here and fill in this t-shirt up here a little bit. Okay. Then I want to go back over a second time, so I'm going to again grab RO8. And I'm going to pull the color out a little bit further this time, past where I went the last time. Oops, I went outside the lines there a little bit. So I'm going past this little crink right here in her shirt. Next is RO5. And I'm going to bring this out here. And then again, we're going to tip to tip, so I'm going to grab my RO2 and touch it down on my RO5. And I'm going to work it till all the color disappears from that extra color disappears. And then I'm going to add a little bit of that up here at the top too. And then I want to use just the RO2 to do the bottom of this ruffle right here on her shirt. Like that. Okay, I'm liking that. So now I'm going to grab my RO8 again, and I'm just going to fill in this waistband. And I'm going to go over the edges a couple of times so that they're darker out here and a little bit lighter in the center. And then I also took my RO5 pin and I added a couple of little dots to these butterfly wings. He's got a little dot right here in the center, but I made one there, and then I put a couple onto the other. He's got 3 little dots showing on him. Notice also up here on above her shirt, I think I'm going to color this in as skin. So I'm going to take my E21 and I'm going to give her just right in here. It looks like maybe a little bit of her back is showing. So I'm going to fill that in with my E21. But then I'm also going to take my E00 and go over it a little bit just to lighten it. That'll make it so it's not quite so got a big white space right there. Now let's work on her pants and her skirt, and for that we're going to use E57, E43, E42, E41, and E40. Now let's go ahead and start with this girl's pants. So I'm going to go ahead with my E43 first. And we're just going to add a little bit of color here towards the edge. And she's got a couple little sections here where she's got little wrinkles. I'm going to go ahead and exaggerate those. Same with right here. She's got a little bit of bend in her knee. So we're just going to go right up underneath the bench. And I'm going to grab E42. Bring that out. And I didn't use all the colors on down here towards the bottom. And next is E41. So we're just going to bring that out here towards the edge. And then I took my E57 where I wanted to add some shadows. So I'm going to just do a very small line up the edge of her pants. And then I want to do a little wrinkle right here. And I want to exaggerate this little crease in her legs. And then let's also do a little wrinkle right here that's a little bit more exaggerated. And then for this side, I'm going to go right along that this edge. And I'm going to exaggerate that little bump right here, but I'm also going to put one up here a little bit. right up this leg again and underneath the bench. And let's go ahead and give this a little bit of a wrinkle. Give it a little bit of crease right there. Like that. I'm going to go up here and we are going to work on her fanny. So again, I've grabbed E43. And let's go ahead and start over here and do where her leg is touching this other girl's skirt. I'm going to go right up to where the crease in her pants shows right here. And then over here, we're going to go around this pocket and up here around her fanny and connect to this side. And then E42 is next. And she's got a little bit of her knee left blank over here, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. And then E41. I think this time I'll go right over these pockets. And then for her belt up here, she's got these little spaces that her belt goes through on her pants. I'm going to do a little bit on the edge where it curves around her waist, and then I'm going to take my E40 to fill that in. Okay, that's good for her side. And then next, let's do this girl's skirt. So again, I'm going to start with my E43, and I'm going to do a little bit of that color right here next to her skirt. It's touching her body, like that. And then for her fanny here, let's go ahead and pull this out like this. And I think I'll bring it around. And then over here, we're going to go right next to this little wrinkle in her skirt. And maybe a little bit next to this wrinkle. Okay, then I'm going to grab E42. And I'm going to go ahead and fill in this little section over here, next to a ruffle. And we'll do a little dab on each side of this. And then for this, we're going to pull it out here a little bit more. Next, we'll grab E41. And we're going to fill in the rest of this little section right there. And then this section, let's bring this out past this ruffle. And we're going to bring this out here towards the side. And then E40, we're going to fill the rest of this skirt in. And I'm also going to use this color on the ruffle. And I wasn't too careful whether it filled it all the way in, and I left some white in there because I'm going to go over it with some stickles, and it'll cover it up if you didn't fill it all the way in. But I'm also going to take my E57, and I'm going to go right next to her shirt and give it a little bit more shadow right there. And then down here where it's bumped up, I'm going to give it a little more shadows. Okay, and then let's work down here. The bottom of her skirt is showing, so again I've grabbed E43, and I want to give it some ruffles. So let's do some creases in here. So how about right here? Each place where it looks like it's bumping up, I'm going to give it a little line for some depth. Okay, but I also want to add this color underneath of the bench. So I'm going to just go ahead and draw a little line across there. Then I'm going to grab E42, and I again want to go over my lines I put down here. Just making them thicker. And then we're going to go across this underneath the bench part so that we can soften that edge. and then E41 is next. And we're just going to fill this top section in. And then again, E40, we're going to do this ruffle. And I'm going to go ahead and use this color all the way across too. And I forgot to do that up here, so let's go ahead and do that up here. For her shoes, or for their shoes, let's use E37, E35, and E33. I'm going to start with my E37. I'm going to put in a little bit of shadow, so let's go right next to this other shoe, like that. And then let's do the curve of this sole. And she doesn't really have any definition on these shoes. I'm just going to kind of wing it. And this one, we're going to go down the middle and again over that little bump she has drawn on there. And then let's add a little bit of shadow down here on the bottom of her shoe. And then same for this side. Then I'm going to grab E35. And we just want to extend that out a little bit. And we're just going to soften that edge. And then I'm going to take E33 to cover up the entire area. There's a little bit of her foot right there. Let's grab E00. I'm going to get a little bit of skin color right here above her shoe there so she has an ankle. For the bench, let's use E18, E15, E13, and E11. And I'm going to start with my E18. And let's go ahead and do the legs of the bench first. So I'm going to go down here and add a little bit underneath the bench, and then down the back side of each of the legs. Same for this side. Let's do underneath the bench, and then down the backs. Alright, and then for the bench part, I want to add a little bit of color right along this edge. And then let's get some of these lines here. And then for the girls up here, let's do again, get on top of these lines here. And then let's do a little bit around each of these girls' fannies. I'm going to bring it out a little bit. And we'll come back around this side. And let's brush this color out just a little bit. Then I'm going to go with E15, and for the legs I want to go over the last color and then bring my line back down and spread it out while softening that last color. And I'm going to go up here again to the bench. Again, I'm going right over that color I just put down. Next, we're going to grab E13. I'm going to fill the bench legs in. So there's not much room left. Okay, and And then again, we're going to go up here and we're going to go over these colors we just laid down, adding some more on top. I'm leaving a little bit of white. And then I'm going to take my E11 last to go over the entire area. Now I'm going to add a little streaks in here. So I'm going to take my let's take E15. And I'm just going to go over the top of some of this dark and just bring some of these streaks out here onto the bench a little bit more. Give it a little green in there. Okay, I'm liking that a lot better. Now let's finish up the ground down here and some more shadows down here. So for that we're going to use G94, G91, W1, W00, and then for the flowers I'm going to use R05. So let's go ahead and start with our W1, and I'm going to finish outlining down here at the bottom. So I'm going to start with my little blue where I stopped right here, and we're just going to add a little bit of that underneath of our bench and down the legs. That. Let's continue over here on this side. And then I'm going to grab W00, and I'm going to do the opposite side. But I'm also going to go over that edge that I just laid down just to soften it a little bit. And I also want to go around each of these girls' legs. And I'm not being very careful up here around her skirt. I don't care if I get some on there because it's pretty close in color to the color I colored it. Alright, so that's for that. And then for the grass we're going to use G94. And so I'm just going to take my pencil or my pen and just kind of color some along each of these little grass knolls that are already on there. And then I'm going to grab G21. I'm going to add some more color to each of these little grass knobs. Bring this color over onto the other side here. And I'm not being very careful. I'm just kind of willy-nilly putting the color down there. I did try not to color the girl's leg. Next I'm going to go with W1. And I'm going to add that where I added my G94. Just to give it a little bit more dark in there. And then W00. I'm also going to do a little bit of that just in the sections here in the middle, just to give it a little texture. And then we'll take R05 and we want to color these flowers in. And I wasn't really particular about it. I just went through and kind of dotted my pencil or my pen on top of some of the little dots that the flowers showing here. If I went outside the lines, I didn't care about that. Okay, and then also, this little color, she's got these little flowers in her hair up here, remember? I'm going to go ahead and dab those with my R05. Give that a little bit of color in there. So there is our beautiful Belinda and Bernadette all colored up. Don't they look pretty? And again, here is the finished card. So on my girls, I added my Spica clear glitter pen to their hair. I used my Sharpie white paint pen to add some dots to this little girl's shirt. And then I used my Stickle Stardust to add some sparkle to the edge of her skirt ruffle. And then to each of these little flowers down here just to give it a little bit of sparkle. So I hope you had fun coloring with me today. If you have a question, leave me a comment and I will get back to you. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.